You've been doing everything right. You're fasting, watching the clock, skipping meals. Yet that stubborn belly fat refuses to leave. You drop a few pounds on the scale, but you're midsection, still holding on for dear life. It's frustrating, right? Let me tell you something most people miss. Fasting doesn't automatically burn fat, not if insulin is still high. Think of insulin like a lock on your fat cells. When it's up, your body can't access the stored fat for energy. Even when you're not eating, that elevated insulin keeps your fat trapped. You can be in a fasted state on the outside, but metabolically, you're still fed. This is the part that shocks people. You can be doing all the right fasting windows, 16-8, 20-4, even full day fasts, and still not lose the visceral fat that matters most. Why? Because insulin has the final say. Until that hormone comes down, your body will protect fat, not release it. But here's the hopeful part. Once you learn how to lower insulin, not just by fasting, but by eating strategically, your metabolism shifts, fat release finally turns on, energy improves. That brain fog lifts. And suddenly, fasting starts working the way it's supposed to. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how that happens. The science behind insulin resistance, why it blocks fat even during fasting, and the Fighty One insulin trick that unlocks stored fat for fuel. Insulin is your body's master storage hormone, and it's far more powerful than most people realize. Its main job is to take the fuel you eat and decide where it goes. When you eat, insulin rises to shuttle glucose into cells for energy. But if there's more fuel than you need right now, insulin's message is simple: store it. Some goes into the liver, some into muscle, and the rest, the overflow, gets tucked away as fat. That system works beautifully when insulin gets the chance to come back down between meals. But that's not how most of us live anymore. Every snack, every healthy smoothie, even that morning coffee with cream, it all sends a small insulin signal. And here's the part that surprises people: it doesn't take much. Even mild insulin spikes can keep your body from accessing fat for fuel. Imagine your fat cells as tiny storage lockers, each holding the energy your body has saved for later. Insulin is the lock on those doors. When insulin is high, the locks stay sealed tight. Even if you're not eating, your brain might think you're fasting, but metabolically, your fat cells never got the memo. So what happens next? You start your fast hoping to burn fat. But because insulin hasn't dropped enough, your body doesn't switch into fat burning mode. Instead, it keeps looking for glucose. You get tired, you get hungry, your energy dips, your mood shifts, and your brain says, starving? We're starving. That's when most people give in because they lack willpower, but because their biochemistry is fighting them. The frustrating part is that many fasters never even know this is happening. They see influencers talk about 16-hour fasts or 48-hour resets and think, if I just go longer, it'll work. But if your insulin stays elevated, no amount of fasting time will flip that metabolic switch. You'll just be running on fumes, breaking down muscle, not fat. Let's make it visual. Picture your metabolism as a hybrid car. It can run on two fuels, glucose and fat. Glucose is like electricity. Quick, easy to burn, but it doesn't last long. Fat is like diesel, steady, powerful, and made for endurance. Fasting is supposed to switch your engine from electricity to diesel, but insulin keeps that switch jammed. So instead of running smoothly on fat, your system sputters, looking for sugar that isn't there. You might even notice it in your symptoms: that midday crash, the fog after skipping breakfast, the irritability that comes right before you break your fast. These aren't signs that fasting isn't for you. They're signs that your body hasn't yet learned to burn fat because insulin hasn't gotten low enough to allow it. Even the foods you eat before your fast can make or break this process. A clean meal loaded with protein but sneaky carbs, a banana in your smoothie, a handful of trail mix, that drizzle of honey in your tea, all can nudge insulin just high enough to block fat release for hours. And timing matters, too. Late night eating, even if it's keto-friendly, can keep insulin elevated into the next morning. So when you start your fast, you're not starting from zero, you're starting from high. It's like trying to drain a pool while the hose is still running. Here's the truth most people never hear: fasting is only as powerful as your ability to lower insulin. You can't out-fast a bad insulin response. You can't trick your body into fat burning if that hormonal lock stays on. The real magic of fasting happens after insulin drops. when those fat cell doors finally open, releasing energy back into the bloodstream. That's when you feel alert, energized, and light, not because you're starving yourself, but because your body has finally remembered how to burn its own fuel. Insulin is not just a hormone. It's a gatekeeper. Every time you eat, insulin steps in to decide what happens next with that energy. Picture it like the security guard at the entrance of your body's energy vault. When food comes in, insulin opens the gates and lets glucose enter your cells. It's supposed to make sure energy gets distributed safely and efficiently. But the story doesn't end there. Insulin also decides when those gates stay closed. If insulin levels remain high for too long, from frequent eating, too many carbs, or constant snacking, that same security guard becomes overprotective. He stops letting energy back out, and that's where fat loss hits a wall. Let's simplify it even more. When insulin is low, your body can easily move between stored energy and fuel in the bloodstream. It's flexible. You eat, insulin rises, your body stores a bit. You fast, insulin drops, and stored fat gets released to keep you going. It's a beautiful rhythm when it's working right. But when insulin stays that your body forgot how to burn fat. It's that insulin won't let it. The guard at the gate is stuck in storage mode. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your body doesn't store fat evenly. The first place insulin tends to lock things down is in the visceral fat. That deep, hidden fat around your liver, pancreas, and intestines. This isn't just the fat that makes your waistline grow, it's the fat that drives inflammation, hormone disruption, and sluggish metabolism. When insulin is high, your liver becomes overloaded. It can't process fat effectively, so it starts storing more. The liver fills up like a sponge, and that internal fat buildup triggers even more insulin release. A vicious cycle that keeps you stuck. You may think you're fasting to burn that belly fat, but your liver's gate is still closed. Think about it like this. Imagine your body as a city. The liver is downtown, the central hub where all energy traffic passes through. The fat under your skin is like storage warehouses out on the edge of town. When insulin is balanced, the gates to both the city and the warehouses open and close smoothly. But when insulin is high all the time, the downtown gates jam. The energy can't circulate. The warehouses overflow and traffic clogs the whole system. That's why you might notice that even when you lose a few pounds, your belly doesn't change much at first. The surface fat may shrink a little, but the deeper, more stubborn visceral fat stays protected, guarded by insulin's security system. Here's the good news. When you finally start lowering insulin consistently, the body reverses that order. The first place fat begins to burn is in the liver and visceral areas. As insulin drops, the liver's gate opens again. Fat stored deep inside your abdomen starts to break down and flow into the bloodstream as usable energy. You'll feel it as steady, calm energy instead of the spikes and crashes of sugar-fueled days. This is why people who truly fix their insulin, not just cut calories, experience such profound changes. Their energy stabilizes, their appetite normalizes, and their body composition shifts even before the scale catches up. They're finally burning from the inside out. If insulin is high, fasting feels like fighting your biology. But once insulin drops, fasting feels natural. Hunger quiets down, mental clarity rises, and you realize your body wasn't broken. It was just locked. And the master key? It's not fasting harder. It's learning how to lower insulin, to calm that overprotective guard so the gates finally open and your body can burn what it's been saving all along. Fasting lowers insulin, but only temporarily. The mistake most people make is thinking that skipping meals automatically resets their metabolism for good. It doesn't. Fasting gives insulin a chance to come down, but if the next meal spikes it sky high again, all that effort is undone in minutes. Here's what happens in real life. You finish your fast, maybe it's been 16, 20, even 24 hours. You feel proud. Your stomach is empty, your mind is clear, and you imagine your body burning through stored fat. Then you break your fast with a meal that feels earned. A bowl of fruit, a smoothie, maybe even a few bites of bread because, after all, you haven't eaten all day. Within moments, insulin surges. The body goes from fat burning mode right back into storage mode. The gates slam shut again. That swing from low to high confuses your metabolism. It's like taking one step forward and two steps back. The fasting did its job, but the refeed reversed it before your body could adapt. Over time, this creates what I call the fasting trap. You keep fasting harder, longer, hoping for change, but you're actually training your body to protect fat, not release it. It's easy to fall into this cycle. After a long fast, hunger hormones are elevated, and your brain is wired to seek quick energy. That's when the sugary foods, healthy grains, and even high-carb fruits look irresistible. They don't just satisfy hunger, they flood your bloodstream with glucose. Insulin spikes, locks down the fat again, and your metabolism resets to square one. Then comes the crash. A few hours later, you're tired, foggy, and craving more food. So you snack. Maybe just a handful of nuts, maybe a protein bar, maybe a latte. Each bite, each sip sends another tiny pulse of insulin. It's not a huge spike, but it's enough to keep your fat cells sealed. Before you know it, your fasting day has turned into a series of little refuels that never allow insulin to truly drop. This is why so many people say, fasting worked at first, but now I'm stuck. They assume their body has adapted or that they need longer fasts. But what's really happening is insulin resistance underneath. Their fasting windows are getting canceled out by their eating windows. The system never resets because the hormone never rests. Think of fasting like taking the brakes off your metabolism. It gives your body permission to move again. But if you hit the accelerator, high carb meals, constant snacks, right after, the brakes slam back on. You never build momentum. The people who break through this plateau learn one critical lesson. Fasting and insulin control are partners, not opposites. Fasting without controlling insulin is like trying to dry out a sponge while pouring water on it. You have to give your body consistency. Periods of low insulin followed by smart, calm refeeds that don't send it soaring again. That means breaking your fast with foods that keep insulin stable. Think clean proteins, healthy fats, and fiber, eggs with avocado, salmon with greens, a small handful of olives or nuts. These foods tell your body, we're eating, but we're not flooding. Insulin rises gently, delivers nutrients, and then drops again, allowing fat burning to continue seamlessly. It's also about timing. Eating too frequently, even clean food, keeps insulin pulsing all day. Your body never experiences true metabolic rest. That's why spacing meals and avoiding just a bite between them matters more than most realize. Every time insulin rises, fat release pauses, even if the calories are low. Once people see this clearly, fasting becomes less about deprivation and more about rhythm. The goal isn't to push your fast longer. It's to create a cycle your body can trust. Low insulin, gentle refeed, rest, repeat. That's when fasting becomes sustainable. You're no longer chasing results, you're guiding your hormones. The truth is, your body doesn't need punishment to burn fat. It needs consistency. Every time you lower insulin and keep it there, not just for hours, but for days and weeks, your fat-burning machinery grows more efficient. Energy stabilizes, cravings fade, and fasting starts to feel effortless. That's the missing link for so many people. They've mastered the clock, but not the chemistry. And until those two align, fasting remains a struggle instead of the metabolic advantage it was designed to be. There's a reason some people fast and never seem hungry, while others battle fatigue and cravings all day. The difference isn't willpower, it's insulin control. Once you understand how to manage insulin through food timing and order, your body finally cooperates. The fix isn't to eat less, it's to eat smarter. The most powerful tool I've seen in my clinic is what I call protein first, carbs last. It sounds simple, but it completely changes how your body handles insulin. When you start a meal with protein, eggs, meat, fish, even a protein shake, you send a calm signal to your pancreas. Insulin rises gently to handle amino acids, not surging the way it does for glucose. Then, when you add carbs later, your blood sugar response is dramatically lower. Imagine your bloodstream as a busy freeway. When you eat carbs first, it's like opening all the lanes at once, traffic floods in, insulin panics, and your body rushes to clear the road by pushing glucose into fat cells. But when protein goes first, it's like traffic control. The on-ramps open one at a time. Everything moves smoothly. This one small change, protein before carbs, can lower insulin spikes by up to half. Over days and weeks, that means your fat cells stay unlocked longer. Your body spends more time in a true fat-burning state, even between meals. The next part of the trick is spacing meals. Every time you eat, insulin rises. Even a handful of almonds or a sip of a sweetened drink resets the clock. The goal is to give insulin enough downtime between meals to fall back to baseline. That's when your body dips into stored energy. For most people, that means no grazing. 3 solid meals, or 2 if you're fasting. Think of insulin like a seesaw. When you snack, you keep pushing it up before it ever has a chance to come down. You might not feel it, but your fat-burning switch never turns on. When you eat, then give your body a solid break, the seesaw settles, and that's when fat release starts. And timing matters. Late night eating is one of the biggest hidden blockers for fat loss. Your body's insulin sensitivity drops in the evening, meaning the same food that's harmless at noon becomes a fat storage signal at 10 p.m. If you finish eating a few hours before bed, insulin can fall overnight. That's when your body finally shifts gears into fat-burning repair mode. Here's how it looks in real life. Picture 2 people doing the same 8-hour fast. The first breaks their fast with a big bowl of fruit and granola. Insulin spikes instantly, fat burning shuts off, and within an hour, they're hungry again. The second breaks their fast with scrambled eggs, avocado, and a few sauteed veggies. Insulin rises slowly, fat stays available for fuel, and they stay full for hours. Same fasting window, completely different result because of insulin. Even within low-carb or ketogenic eating, food order matters. Start with protein, add fat, finish with your carbs, even if those carbs come from vegetables or berries. The body's hormonal response is determined more by order and timing than by total calories alone. Some of my patients see dramatic changes just by shifting their eating rhythm: breakfast around 9 a.m., lunch at 2 p.m., and then stop eating after 6 p.m. No snacks, just water, coffee, or tea between. After a few weeks, their fasting glucose drops, their cravings fade, and their energy steadies. Not because they cut more food, but because their insulin finally had room to breathe. Insulin is like a dimmer switch for fat metabolism. The lower it goes, the brighter your fat-burning light becomes. The protein first, carbs last principle, meal spacing, and early dinners are the hands that turn that switch. The beauty of this approach is that it works with your biology, not against it. You're not forcing your body into starvation, you're guiding it back into its natural rhythm. Once you've learned this balance, fasting becomes easier, meals become simpler, and your metabolism finally runs the way it was meant to: steady, flexible, and free from the constant noise of hunger and cravings. Once you understand how insulin drives fat storage, the next question is always, how do I know if my insulin is actually low enough to burn fat? You can't feel insulin directly, but your body leaves clues, measurable, trackable signs that show exactly where your metabolism stands. You don't need a lab or fancy equipment. You just need a simple glucose and ketone meter, the kind you can buy online or at any pharmacy. These 2 numbers together tell you more about your metabolism than any diet plan or app ever could. Let's start with morning glucose. This is the easiest marker to track and one of the most revealing. When you wake up, before eating or drinking anything, check your blood sugar. In a healthy, fat-burning metabolism, that number should generally sit between 70 and 90 mg/dl. If it's consistently higher, say in the 90s, 100s, or beyond, it means insulin is still elevated from the day before. Your body hasn't had enough time off from insulin to release stored fat overnight. Now, pair that with your ketone level. Ketones are the fuel your body makes when it's actually burning fat. They're produced in the liver once insulin drops low enough for fat to flow freely. You can measure them with the same meter. In the beginning, your ketones might barely register, 0.2, 0.3, maybe 0.5. But as you become more insulin sensitive, those numbers rise. Most people in a stable fat burning state see readings between 0.8 and 2.0. Here's where it all comes together, the Dr. Boz Ratio. This simple calculation gives you a snapshot of how well your body is burning fat versus sugar in real time. You take your glucose number, divide it by your ketone number, and that's your ratio. For example, if your glucose is 90 mg/dl and your ketones are 0.9, your ratio is 100. That means you're in mild fat burning mode. A ratio around 80-100 shows that insulin is starting to quiet down. Between 60 and 80, your body is fully using fat for energy. And when that ratio dips below 40, you're in deep repair mode. That's where visceral fat melts, autophagy increases, and the metabolic healing truly accelerates. It's not about chasing perfect numbers. It's about learning how your body responds to what you do. You might notice that after a clean fast and a protein first meal, your morning ratio improves dramatically. But after a late night snack or a carb-heavy dinner, it jumps higher. Proof that insulin stayed elevated longer. Those numbers are feedback, not judgment. They teach you how to work with your body instead of guessing. Dr. Boz often says, you can't fix what you don't measure. And she's right. Most people rely on how they feel. Energy, hunger, mood, which can be misleading in the beginning. But when you start tracking glucose and ketones, you're collecting hard data. You'll know if your fasting strategy is actually lowering insulin or if your food timing still needs adjustment. Tracking doesn't have to be complicated. For most people, one check in the morning is enough. Over time, patterns emerge. You'll start to recognize what foods keep you stable, what spikes you, and how long it takes your insulin to come back down after certain meals. That awareness changes everything. If your morning glucose stays high despite fasting, it's a sign your liver is still overloaded with stored sugar. That means you need more consistent insulin-lowering days, not necessarily longer fasts. On the other hand, if your ketones climb too quickly while glucose drops sharply, it can mean you're pushing too hard. Your body's under stress. The goal is balance. A gentle rise in ketones and a steady drop in glucose that tells you your metabolism is flexible and calm. Watching these numbers over time gives you confidence. You're no longer wondering, is this working? You can see it working. The Dr. Boz ratio becomes your personal feedback loop, a window into your insulin health. Each time that ratio falls, it means your body is unlocking more fat for energy, healing from the inside out. That's the power of data-driven fasting. No more guessing, no more frustration. Just small, informed adjustments based on what your own biology is showing you. Over time, those small wins compound, insulin quiets down. And fat loss finally follows the science, steady, predictable, and real. When people first start fasting, they expect it to be hard. And at the beginning, it often is. Hunger, fatigue, brain fog, those early waves can feel endless. But that struggle isn't because fasting doesn't work. It's because insulin is still in charge. Once insulin calms down, everything about fasting changes. The cravings fade, energy rises, and fat loss finally starts to feel effortless. The transformation begins when your body shifts from sugar dependence to fat adaptation. That means your cells no longer panic when food isn't coming in. They simply switch fuels. Instead of demanding sugar every few hours, your body learns to tap into its own fat stores for steady energy. That's what happens when insulin stays low long enough for your metabolism to remember how it's supposed to work. I've seen this shift happen in hundreds of patients. At first, they fight their bodies every day. They fast, but they feel miserable. They eat clean, but nothing changes. Then we fix insulin by adjusting food timing, cleaning up hidden carbs, and tracking progress with the Dr. Boz ratio. Slowly, their numbers start to move. Morning glucose drops, ketones rise, their ratio tightens, and then something amazing happens. They stop feeling hungry all the time. When insulin is under control, your brain finally gets the message that you're not starving. You have energy on board, lots of it. The difference is that now, your body knows how to use it. That's what being fat adapted feels like. Calm energy that lasts. No more constant food thoughts. No more crashing mid-morning or dragging mid-afternoon. Visceral fat, the deep, dangerous kind wrapped around your organs, is the first to go once insulin drops. It's your body's way of saying, we don't need to store this anymore. Over time, your waistline changes, but what's even more important is what happens inside. The liver unloads excess fat, inflammation cools, and the signals that once kept insulin high begin to quiet. It's not a diet anymore, it's chemistry working for you instead of against you. That's why I always tell patients, stop chasing the next fasting trend or magic supplement. The fix isn't found in deprivation, it's found in stability. Every time you keep insulin low, you're teaching your body to trust itself again. Once this process starts, fasting no longer feels like a test of willpower. It feels like alignment. You can go hours, even a full day, without food and still feel sharp. Your energy is smooth, your mood stable, and your thoughts clearer than they've been in years. That's because fat-burning energy is clean. It doesn't fluctuate the way sugar-fueled energy does. When your cells run on fat, There's no crash waiting around the corner. Even your relationship with food begins to change. You stop eating out of habit and start eating with purpose. Meals become refueling moments instead of emotional breaks. You can sense when your body needs nourishment and when it just needs time. That's the metabolic wisdom insulin balance brings back. And this isn't just about appearance. Stable insulin changes your brain chemistry, your sleep, your focus, even your mood. It's the difference between waking up groggy and waking up clear, between needing caffeine to function and having natural alertness all day, between feeling trapped in your own cravings and finally being free. For years, people were told fasting was about burning calories. But the truth is, fasting is about training hormones. Once you master insulin, you unlock a system that runs quietly in the background, burning fat, maintaining energy, protecting muscle, and repairing from the inside out. This is why those who fix insulin never go back, because fasting stops being a punishment. It becomes peace. It becomes a rhythm you live by, not something you force, but something your body begins to crave because it feels right. Once you fix insulin, fasting stops being a fight and becomes your body's natural fat release system.